The Help Myself podcast, brought to you by Q Images, run by Timothy Quisenberry. It's a world-class, veteran-owned and operated Las Vegas-based photography company. Whether you need on-site, in-studio, or on-location photography, be prepared to receive top-notch, innovative, and high-level professionalism from Q Images. While other photographers take photos, Q Images captures memories and creates experiences. Go to qimages.smugmug.com or Instagram at QUE_images. Also, the book Powered by Purpose, written by none other than your host, John M. Singletary Sr. Get your copy today at thehelpmyselfpodcast.com. Welcome to the Help Myself podcast. I am your host, John M. Singletary Sr. I got to put that senior in there because I have a junior. Y'all know John M. Singletary Jr., aka LJ. That's my co-host and my co-pilot, and I am excited about this interview in honor of Autism Awareness Month. I have a dynamic guest. Listen, we took a break last week, but I was excited about this. We've had a couple of conversations. I saw some of the content that she was doing. And so I am excited about our guest, who is Nia Spencer of Spectrum Lingo. She is amazing, working with the neurodivergent members of our community, the autism spectrum community. And she's doing amazing work. Autism life coaching. But I'm not going to get too far into it. I want to get to this amazing interview. I want to introduce to you Nia Spencer. So without further ado, let's get into it. And here's our interview with Nia Spencer, Spectrum Lingo.
It's April, so happy Autism Awareness Month. No, it's Autism Acceptance Month. No, it's awareness. Acceptance. Awareness. Guys, it's both. You cannot have one without the other. So in order to be aware, you have to find out what does autism mean to that individual. And then you can accept them by providing them with the supports and the accommodations that that individual needs. So can I have one without the other? I just received an autism diagnosis. But now, did you know that most parents are waiting over a year just to get evaluated for getting the services that they need, like OT, PT, speech? That is why this Thursday on April 13th, I am hosting a workshop entitled What to Expect After Receiving an Autism Diagnosis. The purpose of this is to give parents and caregivers the strategies and the tools to help their little ones with their sensory needs, as well as helping them to reach their milestones. These are tips that you can start using today. To get your tickets, sign up today at spectrumlingo.com. Notice that your child can get a little too overstimulated being on their device or their phones, making it hard for them to fall asleep at night. Here's one tip you can try. So you're gonna go into your phone settings, go into brightness, turn night shift on. That's what's gonna turn the blue light off. And then bring the brightness down as well. Use this tip especially at nighttime because the blue light in the device tricks the brain into thinking that it's daytime. Be sure to follow for more sensory tips and strategies. Hey there, are you or a loved one on the autism spectrum? I'm asking because my name is Nia and I'm an occupational therapist. I have had the chance to work with, I would say, over 250 students, and I've worked with those on the autism spectrum from school age to adolescence to adulthood to even seniors on the autism spectrum. And by learning from this group, I have learned so much. At the same time, I also learned that there is a lot more that they need help with as well. And this could be the social skills, the learning about emotions, as well as cognitive skill development. I felt like a lot of times there's a lot of problems and there's a lot of need, but what are we going to do about it? So that's why I developed a program called Spectrum Lingo. This program has been 7 years in the making, but I have used different tools, tips, and strategies that I have worked with my students to now put it all in one online program. And with this program, it's all online. It's a full curriculum that you can access on your own device. So I want to share with you the tips and the strategies that I have seen that have been successful with those that I worked with. And I want to share that with you. To learn more about this program, click the link below.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to the Help Myself podcast. Again, I'm your host, John M. Singletary Sr. I got to put that senior in there because I have a junior. That's AKA LJ. That's who I do it for. That's my co-pilot on this amazing ride. And today we are excited for Autism Awareness Month. We want to bring some awareness not only to our own areas. So I am excited to have a special guest. None other than Nia Spencer. She's a occupational therapist, registered, licensed, and she's worked with people on the autism spectrum for over 7 years. And she created Spectrum Lingo. Now you gotta get tapped in and tuned in. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna edit all this. We're gonna have all the contact info, but go to spectrumlingo.com. She handcrafted and developed the program for people specifically in the ASD population, and the tools that she used for her students that have worked are exactly what she uses in this program. So they tackle 3 components. That's cognitive, social, and emotional skills. And these components are key to help our autistic folks and people on the spectrum unlock and access today's world. And it's also a great benefit to the family members and people that love and support our ASD community. So without further ado, let me bring in Nia Spencer.
Hello. That introduction, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to record that and reuse that.
Have at it. It is yours. Absolutely. No, we are excited to have you. Let me quickly tell you how I serendipitously discovered Nia and Spectrum Lingo. I have a friend that is her aunt, her family, and she was doing a show with Awesome Cuts about autism and haircuts. He's a barber doing great work. And she sent me the clip and said, hey, you got to check this out tonight. This is family right here. And so I was like, I got a lot of respect for Ms. Harris and Brother Jerome, who, I met early on in my Air Force career over 2 decades ago. We're not telling ages or nothing. And I checked it out and I followed and the tips. And the only complaint I have is, where were you 14, 15 years ago when we got our autism diagnosis? But no, I'm so excited about what you're doing for our community and for our loved ones. And it's just a beautiful thing. So before we get started, did I capture the introduction? Is there anything else you want to share with us?
That introduction was amazing. Thank you. I feel like you really fine-tuned all those good points that I always forget to say. So thank you.
We got to make sure you get your shine because you're definitely deserving of the shine. But what I really want to know, and I know the people watching, listening want to know, is what inspired you to get into this discipline? What along your journey made you get interested to get into this very rewarding field?
So honestly, if you had told me even say 10 years ago that I would have been doing this, I would have laughed. I would have been like, ha. My dream was always working in music, working in the music industry.
Really?
I know. Yeah. So I was actually doing it. Like I had interned at Warner Music, at Atlantic Records. And I was like, this sucks. I'm like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. It was just, they always say the music industry is shady, And it definitely is not the type of energy that I felt myself being in. So then I was like, okay, let me do radio, because I was already working in radio promotions at the label. I did that and I was like, this pay is terrible. The ceiling of growth is so low that I was like, I might as well work at McDonald's. I was like, You know? Like, it sounds cool to say, oh yeah, I work in radio, because I was working at CBS radio. And I was like, this is terrible. I was like, no. Mm-mm. So my dad, he's actually a physical therapist, right?
Okay.
And he told me, he's like, hey, why don't you check out OT? I'm like, what's a OT? I don't even know what that is, right? And he was like, occupational therapy, look into it. I Googled it. And when I found out that it's like such a great impact in people's lives, because you are helping people become independent. You're helping people become as functional as possible. So God forbid, someone gets into a car accident, they break their arm, they break their leg. So many things that we take for granted, such as just getting dressed, getting on and off the toilet. This is what OT works on. So I went back to school, because I have a degree in marketing. So I had went back to school and studied occupational therapy. And when I was in the OT program, I was advised to apply for this scholarship that the New York City Department of Education has, where they'll pay for your tuition. And but I was like, I don't want to work in a school. I don't like little kids. I was like, I'd rather work with my older kids. I'd rather work in the nursing home. But I was like, this tuition is kind of steep, So I applied. I got the scholarship, and in return, you then have to work for the Department of Ed. So you have to work in the school systems. They paid for 2 years of my schooling, so I had to work for 4 years for them, right? And even when I was not interning, but you have to do like rotations before you graduate.
Yep.
And I was working with the autism community. I was working in high schools. I was working with seniors, autistic seniors. And when I actually started actually working to recoup for the scholarship, I was in the schools and I was working in the high schools. And these guys, they really, really grew such a fond place in my heart. Like all of my kids, it's like I still think about them all the time. And when I was working with them, I was like, this is great. However, there's so much more that needs to be done. Typically, at least in the city, a typical mandate, which is the amount of time that you're working with the kid, it's about an hour a week. So twice a week for 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's nice, but they need so much more. And I felt, and when I was talking with you, I was like, I feel like all the attention goes to the little ones, the little kiddos who are just diagnosed and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But then for our older kids, our teens, our young adults, it's just like, all right, best of luck, bye. And I was like, that's not gonna work. I was like, that's not going to work. So
that's facts. That is facts.
I was like, they need so much help. They need so much assistance. And it's just like they don't get any support. The typical trajectory for at least the kids that I worked with was that they would just go to a day program. In other programs, like for, the very high level students, they could possibly go to college. They could take some classes. But even with that, they still have a lot of trouble with socializing. They still have a lot of trouble with managing their sensory needs or whatever it is that's going on internally. So when it comes to actually getting out there into the world, it's like, what are we doing for them?
Mm-hmm.
It's like they'll just collect Social Security and that's it. But that's not a fulfilling life. No. It's not even like people are bawling out on Social Security either. It's just like
not at all.
So it's like that's not life. That's not really living. So as an OT, we're working on all aspects of life. So I was like, you know what? There's a lot that we can address, from dealing with just the emotional needs, dealing with the sensory needs. But I was really saying that the majority of people, regardless if you're on the spectrum or not, a lot of people are not able to communicate with one another. It's like a lost art of being able to know yourself and see an aspect of yourself in other people. So I was, especially now with technology, everybody's just glued to their phones and whatnot. But I was like, no, we really need to address this. And as I was putting this program together, yes, it's for those on the autism spectrum. But I was like, wait a minute. I feel like everybody needs this, I was like, wait a minute now. Because we're talking about emotional regulation. We're talking about how to deal with other people. Sometimes you're going to have conversations with people. You're not going to agree. What do you do? You know, do you curse them out? Do you just say, oh, I'm going to cancel you? You know, it's like, no, you can actually have a conversation. You can explain your feelings in a productive manner. And like, these are the skills that's not addressed in the schools, you know? So I was like, let's put this together, you know? So I had developed an online course. And because I was like, this is the best way to do this, because I would have never thought to do this online if it wasn't for COVID and then everything being, you know, digital and, you know, having the schooling online. And I was like, you know what? This is a good idea, because if I'm in New York,
Yeah.
I'm not going to Nashville. I'm not coming all the way to California to teach you this. I can just do it all online. And then what's even like a greater bonus is that in addition with having the online class, I can coach you. Like, I can directly work with you one-on-one. But here's the catch. So as when you're in the medical field, you can't just jump from state to state. You can't just work wherever. You know, like, my license is just for New York and it's just for Florida. But I was like, you know what? I can work as an autism life coach. So it's like I still have the OT brain, but now as a life coach, I'm working through these mindset blocks that we all have, but especially for those on the, you know, neurodiverse community. They have a lot of self-doubt. They have a lot of, you know, just a lot of self-esteem issues, because it's like you have this diagnosis and it hasn't been easy. You know, just regular folks, we struggling, you know. So I was like, you
Tell
know,
me about it.
yeah. And I was just like, you know what? There's so much help that, you know, people need, but I can't, you know, cure and solve the world, but I can put systems in place to help be that support system for individuals, you know? So everything is still very new. Like, I launched everything last August. So
Okay.
August of 2022. I wasn't even on social media, John. I told you I was living my life just peacefully, you know, great, you know, time for
I
self.
was so jealous because, man, social.
I was like, I gotta get on social media. And they were like, yeah, Nia, you actually have to get on social media. I was like, you sure? It's like, how else are people gonna know about you? If it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't have been able to meet you. You wouldn't have been able to know what it was that I was offering or trying to do, you know? So I've been learning. I've been learning about these reels and these algorithms, and I'm just like, woo.
You're going to have to barter, like, you know, offer some of your life coaching, and then one of your students that's good with social media, bring them on as a social media manager.
Yes, literally. Because it really is a lot, but I have so much respect for, you know, those people that have been able to make such a large impact on these, you know, platforms, because it's not easy, especially when it comes to trying to do something positive or trying to, you know, educate.
Right.
You know, it's like I'm not here to, like, you know, do comedy skits all the time. Like, I don't mind once in a while, but that's not, I don't really see how that will directly help people grow. So for my field, you know, like, once in a while, I don't mind. That's great. But it takes like a good balance of that, what they call it, edutainment.
There you go. It's got to be a lot of more education than entertainment, you know?
Yeah. It's like a healthy balance, trying to figure that out. But I'm learning. I'm taking notes. I'm learning.
And so what is it? On Instagram, that's at Spectrum Lingo, right?
Yes.
That's going to be on the screen too. I'm going to edit that in because I'm getting good at this. So at Spectrum Lingo. We're going to make sure y'all got all of it. So I have a question. So when you talk about life coaching and teaching these skills, so we understand that it's a spectrum. And one of the things I get a lot is people, I tell them my son has autism, and they'll be like, oh yeah, you know, I have a cousin that's really good at math or does this. My son is a little further. He's awesome, but he's nonverbal. So he's further on that spectrum. So like when you talk about the coaching and the online stuff you offer, how far down that spectrum, you know, deep do you go?
Yeah, it really depends, because typically for me, when I was working in the schools, I would work with the sixes. So that's, you know, they need a lot of assistance. That's the group that I am super passionate about. However, I am realistic. And sometimes these interventions may not work over the computer. you know? So it really depends on the individual. You may have some individuals that they have a great understanding. They can communicate using their device, their speech device. So it's like they understand, they just cannot quite communicate. But even for those individuals, it may the online service may not be the best, you know? So it just really depends as to where they are at. And at the same time, there's still skills that we could work on, such as like emotional regulation. It's like identifying how are you feeling? You know, how are you feeling? And then, you know, whether you use like a color system, whether you're like green, you're happy, yellow, you feel a little tired, or, you know, not really feeling it. And then red is what we want to avoid, you know. So there's different systems that we can still implement. But again, with my nonverbal guys, I prefer to work in person because a lot of it is feeling their energy as well. I can't feel people's energy on the computer.
No.
You know, like you could see facial expressions, but generally for our ASD population, their facial expressions are very flat, you know? So you can't just say, okay, well, they're not crying, so they can't be sad, or they're not happy because they're not smiling. And it's like you have to like literally, you really have to feel them. And it's not something you can really feel.
It's not easy, but once you get used to it, it's powerful. Like that energy.
Yeah. Like they've honestly, my guys, they have taught me so much about myself. And it's like I cannot even repay them, because working with this population, it's taught me how to better work with people who are neurotypical, you know? And a lot of it, like I had mentioned, it's the energy. Like you really have to, you know, you could walk into a room and feel it. You don't have to see anything. You don't have to like see that anyone's upset or, you know, yelling or whatnot. But it's like once you step in and you feel like that energy is tight or tense, you know then how to act, you know? So it's like with our guys, even though they're not able to verbally communicate, if they're able to use a device, amazing. But many of them are not able to express themselves as clearly. So it's like a lot of times it's just showing them visually, you know, and just helping them, like being there with them. So it's like if they do encounter something that upsets them, you could automatically like direct them. It's like, okay, instead of doing this, let's go for a walk, or let's do this instead, because you could feel it building up, you know?
Man, that let's go for a walk. Let me tell you, that is my son keep me in shape, because we got that energy. We got to go for a walk. It's like 90 today. I know he gonna come home on 1,000, and I'm like, oh man, I better be prepared for this walk. Maybe we'll take a ride first and then let the sun go down a little bit. Definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's so much like, and it really just shows like how connected we really are, because we really don't need language. Like it helps, makes things a lot easier, but we really don't even need language to really communicate and understand one another, you know?
Absolutely. We'll figure it out. We absolutely will. So some of the early stuff, and obviously we've been connected for a couple of weeks, so let me not say the early stuff, but like my first few videos and experiences that I saw you were talking about what to do when you first get an autism diagnosis for a family member or a loved one, and some of that. So do you incorporate a lot of that into Spectrum Lingo, tools, and what's your first steps when you first start? Because a lot of families, us included, are blindsided. We don't realize occupational therapy, ABA therapy, speech therapy, and I live in Virginia, which is, for all of its faults, is an amazing state. Like my son graduates, but he'll be able to still go to school until the age of 22, and then he'll be able to go to a program at George Mason. So that's a big reason why we're going to stay here, because there's so many resources. But is that a part of the Spectrum Lingo kind of helping parents and loved ones when you get those initial diagnoses, those steps?
Yeah. So what I intentionally was focusing on, here an echo, hopefully it's not showing up on your end. So what I was noticing at first, because at first I was like, okay, just the teens and the young adults, but I was like, wait a minute, there's so many parents that need this assistance. So a lot of the parents need these resources. So I actually, in addition to the program, to the actual Spectrum Lingo program, I also have a parent course It's a 3-hour course for parents, and it's entitled Autism 101, The First Steps and Beyond. And this is to address, because when I was talking to different parents, I realized, I was like, wow, they need a lot of supports, and everybody just seems to be winging it, which is okay. Like, it's something, but
It's something,
we shouldn't have to be winging it, because the stats now, they're saying it's 1 in 36 kids
Yeah.
are being diagnosed. So it's like there's too high of a population to not have these questions answered. Like, it shouldn't be people grasping for straws. So I was like, you know what, let me do my part. And, as an OT, I can't speak on speech. I can't speak on behaviors. But what I did was I actually had it in person. I had everybody come in. So it's myself as an OT, I had a speech therapist, I had an ABA or a BCBA, and I had a parent of a teenager that is on the autism spectrum. And we all came together to answer a lot of these questions. And we spoke about all these different topics. Like, it ranged from dealing with picky eaters to issues with communication with other family members. And we even spoke about like how so many marriages and relationships end up, falling apart because this added stress, both, the partners in the relationship, they're not able to communicate.
Yeah.
So we really went in and, spoke about it all. And it's information that you can trust, because these are professionals. You're not asking your cousin's best friend's son's, daughter about
cousins, neighbors, friends, neighbors around the corner.
I heard you got a child that's autistic. Let me ask you some questions. It's like, okay, that's good too, because you want to build a community, but sometimes you just want that clear-cut information that you can trust. So I had actually put this together, and like I had mentioned, it's on the website. So for parents who are new on the journey, they can, purchase this course, and they can have all their answers, together in a concise format. And you don't have to spend all this time on Google going down rabbit holes and all such. It's like all this is done for you. It's packaged neatly. And that was my contribution to the parents who are new in this,
Man, that is amazing. So many thoughts, so many ideas, just exciting. So lots of good information, lots of amazing stories. What have been some of the more difficult roadblocks in this journey of Spectrum Lingo and, being an occupational therapist?
Honestly, one of the biggest roadblocks is that I have a lot of ideas. I like to move a bit faster than what's needed. So, for instance, with Lingo, right? Right now, we have part 1 this is for the teens and the young adults, right? We have part 1, which is focusing on social skills, emotional regulation, and cognitive skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a vision to also have a program for work readiness. Because there's a large amount of our guys that they graduate high school and they cannot get a job. And it's not so much that they don't have the skills, it's just they don't have the soft people skills, or even the ability to advocate and say, hey, I can do this. However, I need to, work with more lights turned off. Like, oh, there we go. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So it could be like small workplace accommodations that's needed, but the employer is weary, or they're not familiar with this population.
Yeah.
But, with these work readiness skills, it's like, not only are we going to help these young adults understand what they need, but also how to advocate for themselves in these different environments, so that's part 2. That's not done yet, because these are expensive to put together. So we need some funding. And then, I'm going to put that together. And then the third one is that I want to have a community intervention. Community integration. So that'll be part 3.
My ears perked up. I'm like, an intervention? What?
I was binge watching Intervention yesterday. Sorry. But yeah, community integration. So being safe in your community, finding a sense of purpose, being able to socialize and be active in your community, but keeping you safe, teaching you this is what to do versus you need to steer clear of this, just you don't want to keep them in a bubble because they are adults.
Right.
They truly are adults. And just a quick story. When I first started working, I was at the AHRC, which is a organization for the special needs community. And I was working with seniors. So there was a senior, he must have been in his early 60s, right? If you saw him, very clean, very starched, everything, prim and proper. However, you tried to talk to him and you could see like, oh, this guy is on the spectrum. And he's not like someone who you would say is extremely high on the spectrum. However, he was living by himself.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So his parents ingrained from a young age, this is what you do. These are your chores. You need to iron your clothes. They had a whole system in place, right?
Yeah.
So that when his parents passed away, he's still able to live by himself. Once a week, his aunt and uncle would take him to the grocery store, right? But he's preparing all his own food. And it's not like, Chef Boyardee, Chef Boyardee, but, it's basically like microwavable meals or something he could just put in the oven, So it's like he's still able, he looks nourished, clean. But these are skills that his parents ingrained in him from a very, very young age. And the majority of parents that I speak to or come across with, their number one fear is, what is my child going to do when I die or when I'm too old and I cannot take care of my kids? And then I ask them, well, what are you doing now to prepare for that? And generally, they'll say, well, they have a sibling that can take care of them. And it's like, but it's not their sibling's responsibility to take care of, their brother or sister. So it's like, what is your plan? And most don't have a plan. So it's like, we need to address this because you don't want to have to, send your child off into, some other place that's not with family. You would want them to be safe. Or if they are in a residence, you want them to be as independent as possible so that it avoids any potential for abuse, So a lot of the kids that I work with, they may be 19, 20, and they're still not able to use the toilet by themselves, So it's like, if they're still in diapers, it's just opening the door for only God knows what could happen. But this is why parents are extremely fearful, because they're just like, what is my child going to do? But that's why it's like, from a young age, we need to set these systems up so that when they do get older, at least, take care of their, basic needs, clean themselves, brush their teeth, and yes, cognitively, certain individuals may or may not be able to do that. But for the most part, there's a level of, we have to hold ourselves accountable, and that level of accountability, it's so important because this is allowing us to see, okay, this is working and this is not working. Instead of just saying, oh, well, the school should teach them how to, use the toilet. It's like, no, it's not the school's responsibility.
Take it from somebody that babies they 17-year-old, but like, I know he's capable of so much. So, we you got to take those risks, man. And he always funny story. So when we were coming back from COVID, and he was going to school, I think he was 10th or 11th grade when we came back. And I was dropping him off because they hadn't gone back to the bus system yet. And his teacher was like, LJ knows his way to the classroom. Just drop him off in the front. He knows how to walk to the security guard, get his COVID scan, and then walk to the room. Let's try it a couple times, see how it works. My baby went in there and went there by himself, grabbed his bag and walked in and got to class on his own. I went home and cried.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it is true. They're capable of so much more than we believe. So no, I love that part. Yeah,
so much more. Oh, funny story too. So when I was working in a different high school, one of the students, nonverbal, right? We would go once a week to Costco to get the supplies for. They had a convenience store in the school. We turn around, this guy is gone in Costco, and it's a 2-floor Costco. We're panicking. we're just like, oh gosh, we're all gonna get fired, And a lady comes up to us and she's like, I think who you're looking for is at the food court, right? So we run down there. We see this guy sitting down eating a pizza, and we're like, how'd you get a pizza? Because he's not able to verbally talk. He had went to, he went down because at Costco, once you're about to check out, that's where the food is. He ordered a pizza, he paid for it, sat down and was eating his pizza.
Wow.
And we never knew he was capable of this. We had no idea.
I love it. He ordered and paid for his pizza.
And paid for his pizza. And we were like, how did he even order it? I guess, he must have pointed or... And we were like...
He got the job done.
He got the job done, exactly. He was sitting quietly by himself, in the food court, not bothering anybody. And yeah, thank goodness the lady came up to us, because we surely would not have checked the food court. I'm sorry. Like, we were going up and down the aisles like, Jimmy, right?
I'm telling you, listen, when they want something, that's when you'll learn what they're able to do. When they really want something.
Exactly.
So many discoveries with my son. So many. Okay. Well, I know time is of the essence, but there were two things I wanted to ask you. I think one slipped my mind, but what is some advice that you, because there's two elements here. We're talking about, the OT, and we're talking about the autism life coaching. But a part that we haven't talked about is how you went, and from what I understand now, you're a full-time entrepreneur with Spectrum Lingo now?
It's like when you're, and you know this, John, when you're working for yourself, there is no clock in, clock out. It's like constantly, always. I am still working part-time though, because, there's still bills that need to be paid. So it's like I'm working part-time in a high school, just a few days a week. And then I do some home care cases. But the goal is to just, allow for this company to flourish and to reach and help as many families as possible. But it takes time.
It takes time.
It definitely takes time. But definitely my focus, right now, is to really start pushing the autism life coaching. Yeah. So again, I can't say that I'm offering OT legally. I can't say that.
Right, absolutely.
But as a coach, especially if I'm working towards social skills and job readiness, I'm still integrating these two fields regardless. It's like I have to integrate it, because I can see that you can reach a high potential. But if you cannot get out of your own way, then it's like we're not going to get anywhere, So integrating these two skills, I think it's a blessing. I'm so glad that, I even thought about doing this, because again, when you're working as a therapist, you're like, okay, what is this child, what are they not able to do? It's like, okay, we're going to work on that. There's really is really no focus on, wait a minute, let's find out where you want to be in life. Let's figure out how we can get you there. It's more of, okay, you need to get this range of motion. All right, you got to finish this schoolwork. It's very much like you're doing what we're telling you to do. But life coaching is really turning everything upside down. And it's, trying to figure out, like, how does your mind work? And what are some ways that you are limiting yourself through your beliefs, And when you really tie the two together, it's like you're putting these goals together. Like, say if, your son wants to get a job, like, we know that he's capable of navigating his environment. But does he have the confidence to know, like, hey, even though I may not be able to verbally communicate, can I use my skills and things that I'm good at in order to make money and to be employed by someone? And does he
laugh? But one thing my son has a lot of is confidence.
Beautiful. So we won't talk so much about your son, but just in general, it's more of how can I help you help your child? Because as we all get older, how can we make sure they have the skills that they need in order to be successful in adulthood?
Absolutely. Man, so the great work you're doing with The autism, the neurodivergent community. I like that. And entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial pursuits. That's big to me because that's the journey I'm on myself. So had to point those two out. And in the interest of time, I mean, this is an amazing conversation. As an autism parent, I'm just eating this up, and I know this is going to be helpful for everyone that tunes in to check it out, and I'm going to share it. And as a matter of fact, I got some people I want to talk to. I'm going to send them your way because I'm excited about that autism life coaching. But before you go, what's a motto or mantra that you live by and that you would share with everyone that is listening and watching?
I and I. Have you heard of that? I and I?
No.
You hear a lot of Rastas say that. I and I. So not like the eyeball, but like you and I, we are all one. We're all connected spiritually, energetically. We all come from God. We all come from source. So the way that you would treat others is the way that you would want to treat yourself. So you're not going to harm other people. You're not going to steal from other people or badmouth other people because all you're doing is doing that to yourself. So that's my motto. I and I didn't make it up. This is not me. These are the Rastas.
You said it, and I've heard I and I, but I'm like, I know she is not saying I and I from that I hear in all the songs I and I.
No, but it's so powerful though. It's so powerful.
It is. And now I got some game. Now I always love to be like, I know something about this phrase, so now I got something extra to put in my toolkit.
And it's so quick and easy, but it's so profound because it's like even like in the Bible, like it says, I am that I am, and it's just like whatever we put I am in front of is so powerful. So it's like being able to find that connection between you and even say a person I've never met across the world. We're still connected, because we're still part of that I am. So it's just, I feel like if we all live by that, the world would be a very, very beautiful place. It would be very peaceful, it would be very loving.
Absolutely. And before you go, how can the people get in touch with you?
Oh, see, I always forget to plug myself. Oh gosh. Okay. Yes. So I am on all the socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube at Spectrum Lingo, Lingo, and the website spectrumlingo.com. You can book a free consultation. I can talk with you 15 minutes and we could try to see where you're at and how I can best help serve your needs.
Awesome. And like I said, my editing skills are top tier. So all this information will be on the screen at the time it's up. But for all of our listeners that are listening to the audio podcast, that's important. At all socials is Spectrum Lingo. One word, Spectrum Lingo, SpectrumLingo. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really not only appreciate you taking time with us, but I appreciate what you're doing. And I'm a true believer that you're going to make a much bigger impact than even you believe. So
thank you, John. I feel it in my bones, John.
I do too. But thank you again. And we're going to close out with that.
All right. Thank you.
Nice thing in our community. So I am so excited. Nia took some time to come and talk to us about that tonight. I am excited that you took time to listen or to watch this episode. Please share with your friends and family. If you are not subscribed, go subscribe to the YouTube page. That is the Help Myself Podcast Network. Click like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Make sure you share this episode. I'm sure that autism has touched someone you know and someone you love. This is great information to get out there. I thank you for your support. I thank you for continuing to rock with me and my co-host, LJ, who's at school right now, but y'all know how we do here. So we're excited. We're going to keep on bringing amazing guests. Listen, the Help Myself podcast is on the up. We've got a big announcement coming in May, so I'm excited about that. Stay tuned. Keep watching. You're going to see. And I'm going to close like I always do. Listen, I can't help myself. I've got to inspire. I've got to encourage. I've got to empower. But I can help myself by being the absolute best version of myself. And guess what? You can too. So why not we do it together? Thank you. I'm out.